Plan B already in place. Okay? Good evening, sir.
I just stay.
There you go.
Now,
Now
you
you're
don't want it to be on green unless you're talking.
So when
It's an addition, but it's really, yeah, it's an addition.
Test, test. Couldn't hear that. It did. Okay, so then because the mics are on mute. Okay.
Yeah, you could easily say, I've had a request to,
Add an item.
yeah, to add an item, and then do I have, and then it might be easiest for you to make the motion. Like each one has one. Nobody else knows if you're making a motion for many.
Right, I wonder if I can explain how we're doing the meeting.
So you'd say, I'd like. to
When
make
this,
an amendment.
when we reach this point, I'll just say I have a request to add an item.
Oh, okay.
So
Okay.
put it in the
Okay.
agenda.
Okay. So I don't have to say yes or no. All right.
We can propose, but we can add this provision and then if it goes up and then. Okay. And that's good too, because it goes before. Yeah, because it goes before public comment, and that's a really. It's the
Yeah,
perfect way to do
yeah.
it.
Okay. Good evening and welcome to the regular school board meeting of Southwestern School District Board of School Directors. It is February 22nd, 2023, and I apologize for the late start. We did have a need for an executive session, and that was part of the reason why we're late getting started. That being said, the meeting started then at 7:08 p.m. And I'd like to request everybody to rise and pledge the flag with me. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Turn your mic on so you can say your roll call.
Okay, could we have the stand-in for Jeff Mummer?
Sure,
Roll, please.
sure. Mrs. Berger?
Here.
Mrs. Boyer?
Here.
Mr. Clausby?
Here.
Mr. Gelazella?
Here.
Mr. Mummer?
Here.
Mr. Plessick?
Here.
Mrs. Weaver?
Here.
Mrs. Yingst?
Here.
Mr. Zimmerman?
Here.
9 present, 0 absent.
I do have a pretty good handful of people who have signed in to observe at tonight's meeting, and I believe that's what they all are. Give me a half a chance here to check. Yes, it is. All the names will be added to our agenda this evening. The next item is additions, deletions, and modifications to our agenda, and I do have a request to have an item added.
Yes, I'd like to make a motion to amend the current agenda to include a new motion regarding policy 006.
Point one.
Point one.
Point one?
006, section 9.
Okay.
Yeah.
Usually point one is, never mind. Go ahead.
Okay.
Sorry.
Point 9, section 9 is specific to that. Deleting. Okay. No, it'll become obvious. Yes, I need a second. Tom? We have a motion from Matt Gazella for a change to policy 006, section 9.
Just the change to the agenda.
Change to the agenda, I'm sorry, yes, to add that item to tonight's agenda. And a second from Tom Zimmerman. But what we're dealing with here is policy 6, section 9 is to deal with the deletion of recordings of minutes of meetings. So before we hit tonight's approval of minutes, we just want to put this item out there on the agenda because it will affect the deletion of these minutes once we've approved them tonight.
But it doesn't affect the
Would you like me to
deletion of
read
the
the
minutes.
policy?
Well,
So
I'll just-
so the motion, just right now, the motion is to amend the agenda to even have the conversation about what we're talking about. So if you want to make a motion so that Matt can explain, it's just a matter of how minutes are retained.
Yes.
So that's the only, so the motion might affect how the minutes are retained for tonight's meeting.
So
The substantive motion.
So the wording should say to discuss policy and then the number, correct? On
well,
the agenda.
the first emotion is to add an item to the agenda,
That's it.
Yes,
period.
Tonight's agenda.
yes,
To discuss,
Yep.
to discuss.
And then we're gonna vote on that.
Yes.
Correct.
Before we
Just-
go any
there you
further.
go.
The amendment.
That's
Yep.
just one?
No, it's for Robert. He has a lot of rules.
Okay, we're voting on adding an item to tonight's agenda only right now. Roll call, please.
Mrs. Berger?
Yes.
Mrs. Boyer?
yes.
Mr. Clausby?
Yes.
Mr. Gelazella?
Yes.
Mr. Plessick?
Yes.
Mrs. Weaver?
Yes,
Mrs. Yingst?
Yes.
Mr. Zimmerman?
Yes.
Mr. Mummer?
Yes,
9 yes, 0 no.
thank you. And now the item in question.
So I'd like to make a motion under our policy, so we have a policy 006, section 9, that states notations of and any tape of or audiovisual recordings shall not be the official record of open public board meetings and should be destroyed once the board approves meeting minutes, it's a subsequent meeting. So the reason we're asking to discuss it now prior to our minutes is because our minutes are currently triggering a deletion of our public videos online. And that was brought to my attention last week. I asked Ray if we could add that to an agenda. So that's going to be added next planning meeting. But prior to that, I asked that we not delete any videos off our public page until we have that discussion as a board about policy 006, section 9. Because again, when we approve minutes, it's triggering that deletion of our online viewable recordings of our meetings. So that's the motion.
So the motion is under policy 003, which is titled functions, the board may suspend any of their internal procedures, one of which would be the retention of these videos or the destruction of these live stream videos for purposes of minutes. So your motion is really,
I make a motion under policy 003 that the board suspend the provision of 006 to cease the deletion of recordings of minutes until we have addressed policy 006, section 9 at the next meeting.
Can we discuss now?
well, so the motion and
That
then
is-
second,
Second.
We have a motion by Matt, and a second by Tom.
and then ask your questions.
Any, now question.
Okay, so we're deleting them off of the Southwestern website. Are we also deleting them off of YouTube?
Both.
That
Both.
the
And we're,
record-
we're manually doing this.
recording, not the written minutes, just the recordings.
Okay,
All
So,
of our minutes are recorded and are written or typed, if you will, and they're on the website.
okay,
We're talking about the recording of those minutes via either a tape recorder or YouTube. Those recordings is what we're going to be talking about.
okay.
So those recordings, we passed this piece tonight when we approved the items under 7, action on minutes for various meetings that have been already printed up and are also available on the website and YouTube. Those recordings will not be deleted once we approve these tonight, which in other cases, they would be, or they could be. So that's what we're dealing with tonight, is not deleting recorded videos or,
And this is just a suspension up till we have that discussion
I was
at the
gonna say,
next
it's
meeting.
just a
Yes.
suspension.
Yes.
Yes, it's
And then
a-
we're gonna have a further discussion.
Right.
at the next
Okay.
planning meeting,
Okay.
that'll be on for discussion. Policy 6, section 9.
so you got a motion and a second.
I do have a motion and a second.
Let's do
Is
it.
it clear as mud?
So I can explain further if it's clear as mud, what my intent is.
No.
Just-
I think,
You have an idea.
I think everybody has a
Okay.
general idea of what we're going for. Do we have a good idea?
And we're
Okay.
just suspending it and
That
then.
just a
discussion.
suspension.
That's
Yep,
fine.
just a suspension of the
Okay.
deletion of records.
Okay.
Okay, roll call vote, please.
Mrs. Boyer,
Yes.
Mr. Klausby,
Yes.
Mr. Gelazella,
Yes.
Mr. Plessick,
Yes.
Mrs. Weaver,
Yes.
Mrs. Yanks,
Yes.
Mr. Zimmerman,
Yes.
Mrs. Berger, Mr. Moment.
Yes.
9 yes, 0 no.
Thank you. Moving on, anyone in the audience here wish to address an action item on tonight's agenda? Okay, moving on then to item 7, which is action on minutes. Those minutes are from January 9th, January 11th, January 23rd, 25th, February 6th, February 8th, February 15th, a variety of regular finance and special meetings. Are there any additions, deletions, or corrections to those minutes?
Yes.
Yes.
So considering the previous motion we just made, I took a good look at the minutes to see how well we're recording what we do here. And in first glance, our January 11th meetings from the planning meeting, only page 7 is there.
You're right, you're right. I looked up, I'm sorry, I wanted to test.
So that's the first one. That was discussion on our teacher survey, which was very lengthy. And to have that captured so people know how we're representing them, what we discuss, I think we should be at least putting them in the minutes. So for that agenda item, I'd move that
Page
we
7 is the
table
only
it till
one that's there.
we see all the meeting minutes.
Right,
Um,
yeah,
right.
follow up on it, yeah.
Related to the February 15th minutes, the general meeting, that was, I'm sorry, that was the appointment, the last meeting we just had last Wednesday. The appointment of Mr. Zimmerman. We had a lengthy discussion on the pros and cons of who we elected. It was a healthy discussion. That is all boiled down to in our minutes of after all board members provided their additional input. That's what our official record of we stated here last week was additional input. I don't find that sufficient to capture what we discussed. January 9th, the Building and Grounds meeting, our current minutes actually misrepresent what Mr. Klausby stated. Mr. Klausby very clearly stated he wanted to provide the board, make them aware of the contributions the outlaw had made. What our meeting state is, Mr. Klausby indicated that a concerned citizen had raised questions regarding the roster makeup of the outlaws and whether they met the 90% threshold. That was a question I raised and actually took a lot of heat for. I had questions from the outlaws that I fielded on that one. So I didn't want Mr. Klausby to be misrepresented in our minutes as having said that. So I think we should make that change. The January 9th on the agenda for tonight, that was the discussion about renovations. It was a lengthy discussion. Board members weighed in several times. And again, our minutes record, committee members shared their thoughts on various alternatives discussed by Nate. That's the entirety of what the board said in our meeting minutes. January 23rd, the finance discussion we had on the budget, on what each one of us thought the budget should be stated appropriately. Our minutes simply state the committee members shared their thoughts on various budget questions posed above. Doesn't represent where each one of us took a position on our attack. Again, my point isn't to drill this home, but just to point out that our minutes are not showing our voters and our taxpayers what their representatives are saying. I feel like we should be recording for people to be able to see what we have how we're representing them. And I don't feel like our minutes are doing it. And that's what the discussion is going to be regarding the video deletion. And lastly, on the current minutes is this was the Building and Grounds where we discussed the advertising. We had a lengthy discussion on advertising on billboards, and that was boiled down to committee had a good bit of discussion regarding the issue of advertising, which again doesn't relay what we said. So just to get that, and again, it's just to give an overview of how effective our minutes are, because our policy has our video deletion occurring because our minutes are official record. And I don't feel like our minutes, and I'm not trying to slight Mr. Jeff Mummert anyway, because he's not a stenographer, he's not a shorthand, and I couldn't do the job he's doing and get all this recorded as effective as he has. But I still feel like this is short of a video recording that we have online right now. So that would be my point.
Quite frankly, I'm not quite sure how to say to address all those things right now, with Jeff not being here. First of all, I guess, for first, in my mind, minute details, I'm gonna call them minute details. They may not be to you, but minute details of everything that takes place at that meeting is not a requirement by law to be in those minutes, for one thing. And again, it's not a requirement of the state for things like that to be in recorded minutes of the meetings. That's what I'm taking from it right now. If anybody else can add anything to that, I mean, that's my understanding as it stands right now.
I'd like to hear Dr. Dalton weigh in, but my experience on various boards over the last 20 years has been that minutes are meant to be a representation of the motions, the seconds, the conversations that were started. They're not meant to be verbatim transcripts. But the way that I've seen this remedied, when there are parties who want to make sure that their name is listed and that, you know, they have credit for what they've said, they've been able to submit what they said to the person taking minutes to make sure that that's included. And that becomes a process. So again, Dr. Dalton, if you'd like to weigh in on. that
Sure, and
option.
in your current policy states the bare minimum, or I should say the requirements. So it's the date, place, and time of the meeting, the names of the school directors present, the presiding officer, substance of official actions, actions taken, recorded votes, and a record by individual members of all roll call votes and taken, and the names of all citizens who appeared officially. I will say, I've addressed this question with other boards before, and I think it's a result of not having in-person meetings for a while and having live stream and then people being able to watch remotely and then not being able to attend in person, still wanting all the substance of the meeting while not attending in person, right? So I think in the past, the minutes were, they're an official record of what happened, but they're not entirely intended to be a transcript because they expect that the people in the public are attending the meetings in person. And that was how the Sunshine Act was written. Certainly, dynamics have changed. And so some boards waiver. I mean, some boards keep the recordings and some boards continue to delete them. And it depends. I mean, if there were to be a decision moving forward that the live stream recordings remain, I don't know what purpose the minutes would need to be so detailed because the live streams would be available.
Right.
But this is what's required, you know, by the Sunshine Act. It's simply, and this is what you're audited, what districts are audited on as to what their minutes must contain. So yeah, there's sort of the practical and the legal. And yeah.
So as far as the meetings, the minutes tonight, I understand there's some shortcomings that we should make a motion on, such as tabling the one that doesn't have all the pages, it's incomplete. As far as addressing what should and shouldn't be in the minutes, so we're in between in that the accepted way of doing minutes is it's very bare minimum as far as what's required, whereas the gap that's filled by our videos that go up, we have to then remove it. That fills the other role I'm speaking to. So if we have those videos, we don't have to go into how each person represented, the voters, because it's not in our minutes, and the minutes is the accepted previous way. I would argue, and I'm going to argue at the future meeting, that current generation, we've gone to require my personal experience. When I started on police force, there were no body-worn cameras. We're in a society now that wants to see video of what happens. And I think that's an accepted practice worldwide at this point. And I think we should hold ourselves to the same standard. And that's not necessarily the discussion of tonight's meeting, but as far as the minutes are concerned, I just want to clarify, if the board wants to keep the minutes, the official record at this level, I think we should be including another item G that states, bare minimum, what each representative on the board states during the meeting. I know that turns it into a stenography, maybe even a cost-related thing, and I don't necessarily think we need to go there, but we need to stay fully transparent what we say and do here, and that's the point I'm making. So as far as my motion, I don't know, procedurally, I think we have the motion to table at least the incomplete motion. And, I welcome Mr. Cosby to chime in whether he finds that there should be some clarification on the minutes regarding his.
So are you making a motion to table? Because if you make a motion to table, the cleanest way is that the person who seconded, who made the motion to approve the minutes? Anybody?
We didn't get that
We didn't
far.
even get to that
No, we
point.
didn't get that
Okay. Well, there you go. Because that would be,
Okay.
Yep.
Right.
okay. Well, you can still table it. And you need a second to table it.
Right. We could table just one item.
Yeah, I mean, at this point, if you're keeping the recordings available, your
Right.
concerns, other
Right.
than the
They're-
incomplete
yes.
minutes from.
And that's my understanding. If we're gonna, since we've agreed to keep the recordings, we don't necessarily need to adjust our minutes tonight. We can, address that when we address the policy. But I do think there are some items in the minutes that should be specifically addressed, like the one that's missing pages, and not necessarily the generalizations, but there's a misquote, and and the missing pages that I feel like we should definitely discuss, right?
Yeah, the missing pages for sure.
Okay.
I did discover that one myself this afternoon.
Mhm.
And as far as the missing information, that is something I think that you already have it documented, to, I would say, maybe convey that to Jeff, what you found, and should be added. Jay, your comment on?
I had no problem with what I read.
Okay. So at this point, I'm looking, I guess, for.
I mean, another option would be just a motion to accept the minutes or a motion to table the minutes. I mean, you have one, those are the two options, right? So the motion, you could do a motion
We can do
to
a
approve the
motion
minutes and then
to table them all.
vote it down or vote it up. I mean, you haven't had, we don't have a motion on the table yet.
We have a
so-
motion to table them all.
You could have a motion to table them or a motion to approve and see who approves them. I mean, those are the two options at this point. Yep, I hear.
Should we continue having the discussion or should we put at least this on the table, I guess? Why can't we just say that we want to add that in the motion, what
Amend.
is missing, and then we could approve that?
Right.
Could we not?
So Mr. Zimmerman's suggestion is that you make a motion to accept the minutes with the understanding that the deleted pages from whatever meeting
January 11th.
will be updated and provided, available to the
So
public.
moved.
Well, I can't make that motion. Oh, yeah, you
I'll
made- there you
second.
go. And then we need a second.
I'll second.
I've got
Anybody.
3 seconds on the, Tom made the motion.
Sure.
I think you have to say it.
Jay second.
I'm
Mandy?
not seconding. I just, for what it's worth, I know Mr. Mumert is unable to be here this evening, but Mr. Bull and Mr. Furman, I just would like to make it known that those pages that are not being shown was not intentional. And I hope that everyone
Yeah, I wasn't
understands
trying to
that.
intimate that at all either,
Okay,
yes.
great. Thank you.
It was a word processing thing. That's right.
Right, probably.
Okay. So
So you have a motion and a second.
Yep, so let's go.
motion and a second
Right.
Roll call.
to approve Is
Approve
that-
the minutes with the addition.
with
of
the
correction.
addition. Okay, with
That's okay.
the
Well,
addition,
we vote.
With the additional pages that are missing.
with the pages missing.
Yeah.
Okay, that's the motion and that's the
I'm gonna
second.
be here all night.
Roll call, please.
Mrs. Berger,
Yes.
Mrs. Boyer,
Yes.
Mr. Klausby.
Yes.
Mr. Gelazzo,
Yes.
Mr. Plessick. Mr.
Yes.
Boyer, Mrs. Weaver,
Yes.
Mrs. Yinks.
Yes.
Mr. Zimmerman,
Yes.
Mr. Moment.
Yes,
9 yes, 0 no.
thank you.
Aren't I talking loud enough? Gotcha. Thank you.
Outside this room, they can't hear you. Not that they really want to. Okay, next item on our agenda is our student reps. Let's see if I can get this right. I even have a cheat sheet here that might help me out. Annabelle, Amelia Ladacina, and Alyssa Labahari. Is that close? It's your show.
Alrighty, so Key Club sold Valentine's Day grams for 3 days and made over $200 profit, and they're holding officer elections for the 2023-2024 school year coming up very shortly, and there's a potential food drive in April, and with more information to come. Trium is having a spring induction this Sunday, and the applications were due this Monday. They had a benefit recital working with Minithon the 17th. They are planning heavily for March, which is Music in Our Schools Month, so that's a big event for Trium. And then Thursday, March 2nd at 7:45 a.m., Trium is hosting a library, coffee house, and recital. Minithon had worked with Trium for the benefit recital and raised over $900. They're having Mr. Minithon with Student Council this Friday, and registration for the actual Minithon event is due this Monday. Minithon is March 3rd from 8 p.m. to 6 a.m., and elementary schools have either received or will be receiving flyers for paper diamonds. And so the paper diamonds are, children can decorate the diamonds, and for $1 send them up to the high school, and we're gonna put them like up on a wall for the actual mini-thon event, so they get to decorate the actual event for $1, and then the profits go to mini-thon. Junior class office has decided on a prom location. It will be in Wise Haven Event Center in York, May 11th, 2024. And they profited $1,700 from the sub sale and $200 in donations from students. The sophomore class is currently running an R&K sub fundraiser until March 6th. And competition and basketball cheer has competed in 3 competitions so far and won 1. And they're going to Ocean City next Saturday.
Diversity Club is currently preparing for Take a Stand Week. Our freshman class office held their class meeting, and they also held their Kids Night fundraiser. It went well, but there was little participation, and they're planning to hold the same fundraiser later in the year and hoping for more people to participate. They concluded their Joe Corby's fundraiser and will know more information about the profit around March. Swimming and diving held the Southwestern Relay Invitational at the end of January. The girls won the meet for the second year in a row, and the boys' team ended in 4th. The girls concluded the season with a 4-1 record and tied for first in the division with Central York. The girls' team is the first team of division champs for swimming in school history. At the county meet, the teams earned a combined 23 medals. Every member of the girls' team that advanced to counties earned a personal best time in at least one event. At County's Owen Cromer from our boys team won both the 50 freestyle and 100 freestyle events, and 6 girls and 7 boys are currently practicing for districts for swimming, which will be held March 3rd and 4th, and 1 girl is practicing for diving, which will be held this Saturday. Girls basketball ended their season with a record of 7-15. The season did not go quite as planned due to multiple injuries and various conflicts, but the girls are looking forward to next year and excited about all of the upcoming talent they will be receiving. Boys basketball ended their season 4-17. They ended the season with many close, hard-fought games that they played well together as a team. They had their end-of-season banquet where they celebrated the accomplishments of the season and highlighted the seniors. And boys and girls wrestling have 2 people moving on to districts, Daniel Pierce and Robbie Sterner.
For Varsity Club, there was a Bearsville VIP dance on the 10th of February. Mannheim Superhero Day will be the 27th of February, and currently there's a Gertrude Chocolate fundraiser going on now till the end of February. Student Council, so our snowball was a success. It was a winter wonderland, for sure. Mr. Mini-thon is this Friday, the 24th. We have 8 participants. Tickets are being sold all during lunch this whole week for $5, and they can also be bought at the door. Our Region F conference is next month, the end of next month, the 31st, and almost half of our council will be attending, and we will be able to meet other student council chapters in our region and grow our leadership skills. We also donated 328 pounds of cans to New Hope Ministries last week after a 2-week-long food drive. The senior class office sent out official prom invitations sometime this week. They should be mailed out to every senior, just outlining important information like the location, time, and any other details. The TSA is currently working on ways to help members fundraise money to alleviate some of the costs to attend the upcoming state conference in April.
Okay. Questions or comments to the reps? Very good job. Thank you. Matters for which board action is required, Personnel Committee, Mrs. Berger.
Thank you, Mr. Mummert. I'd like to make a motion to approve item 9A1, which includes leaves, 2, which is employment, and that goes through A and B, A through D.
Second.
We have a motion by Vanessa Berger, a second by Jay Clousby for agenda item 9A under personnel, subsections 1 and 2. Comments or questions? Roll call, please.
Mrs. Boyer,
Yes.
Mr. Clousby,
Yes.
Mr. Gilazella,
Yes.
Mr. Plessick,
Yes.
Mrs. Weaver,
Yes.
Mrs. Yingst,
Yes.
Mr. Zimmerman,
Yes.
Mrs. Berger,
Yes.
Mr. Mummert.
Yes.
9 yes, 0 no.
would note, item 3 is a resignation, and item 4 speaks to the vacancies that are available through the website.
Thank you, Mr. Berger. Agenda item 9B, Finance and Support Services Committee, Mrs. Ying.
Thank you, Mr. Mummer. I'm going to pull out item 3. So my first motion will be to approve items 1, 2, and 4. Okay. 1 and 2 are the monthly financial reports, and 4 is the general operating budget for York Adams Academy.
Okay, so we have a motion by Amanda Yinks and a second by Vanessa Berger. Agenda item 9B, 1, 2, and 4. Any other comments? Tom, go ahead, Tom. Are you, no,
You just was turning it on.
oh, okay. No other comments? Roll call, please.
Mr. Klausby,
Yes.
Mr. Gelazella,
Yes.
Mr. Plessick,
Yes.
Mrs. Weaver,
Yes.
Mrs. Yingst,
Yes.
Mr. Zimmerman,
Yes.
Mrs. Berger, Mrs. Boyer,
Yes.
Mr. Mummer.
Yes.
9 yes, 0 no.
Okay, and before I make a motion for item 3, I'd like to turn it over to Mr. Furman.
Okay.
At your place this evening, I placed a packet of information for the budget. The first section that's paper clipped, that's all for section 8, tab 8 in your book. And if there's a little note that we have attached, which pages need to be replaced on tab 8 in your budget books. And then behind that, the other section that's paper clipped, there's 2 tabs on the side. Option B, which is every page in tab 1 has been replaced to reflect all the changes we made for option B, which weren't many, but there were so many pages that changed, we figured just do a whole new section for that one. And then we included another tab for you to put it in right in front of the old original budget in your budget book. So that way tab 1 has your option B, full budget, the original full budget is in there for you. And again, the changes that we had discussed were the bond issue is no longer in the option B, so that $2,050,000 is no longer there. The transfer to long-range capital plan is now in there at 860 some odd $1,000. And then the tax rate is down to the 0.60 mils because we're at the fund balance limit. So any further questions?
Any other questions? Roll call, please. Oh, okay. Is there a motion?
So I'd like to make a motion to tentatively adopt the 2023-2024 general fund budget and the related tax structure of 0.6 mils.
Second.
We have a motion by Amanda Yinks and a second by Cindy Boyer for agenda item 9B3. Any further discussion?
Now I have a question.
Okay.
Because Doug, Mr. Furman, sorry. Is it still that this is just the tentative?
Correct.
And that we have from now until the time we do the final to
Correct.
either increase expenses, decrease expenses,
Correct.
or take money from this
Right.
pot and move it to this pot?
That's correct. The final adoption will be at right now it's scheduled for the April 12th planning meeting. We can't do it at the next board meeting because that's only 28 days. We have to have the budget sit for 30 days once it's tentatively adopted. So with this being February, we have to wait till the April 12th meeting. So yes, this is just tentative. Final adoption will occur at the 12th, or it can be pushed back later if the board wishes. So
It could be.
could be, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, exactly.
Thank you.
Okay, he does have his copy of the.
Anything comment I'd like to make is, while this is tentative adoption, and I'd like to push the final adoption back further than April.
What's the reason for that?
To give people time to respond and look at the budget in depth.
When was the budget put live on the website?
It was put live on the website January 24th. And the information that we gave to the board this evening, that will be on the website tomorrow. We
Matt.
always wait till we present it to the board before we have it posted on our website.
Matt, for clarification purposes, when you refer to the word people, do you mean the 9 of us sitting here, or do you mean the community at large?
I mean, community at large.
Okay.
So that gives 4 to 5 weeks for people to look at it with the current final adoption, the first planning meeting, that is, in April. It still gives 4 or 5 weeks for people to look at it. Feel that's sufficient?
And if we have more discussion and we don't feel comfortable, we can always push it back at that point,
Absolutely.
in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, we have the planning meeting in March and the regular meeting in March that we could push it back at either one of those.
Okay.
Or other meetings in between, we can talk about finance committee, budget,
Fair enough.
because it'll be on pretty much all the agendas that we'll be going through the next month and a half.
Yeah, we're still tentative, so that makes sense.
Yep. Yep. Okay, we good? We have we're waiting for a roll call?
We are.
I'm glad somebody keeps me in line. Roll call, please.
Mr. Plessick,
Yes.
Mrs. Weaver,
Yes.
Mrs. Yingst,
Yes.
Mr. Zimmerman,
Yes.
Mrs. Berger, Mrs. Boyer,
Yes.
Mr. Klausby,
Yes.
Mr. Gelazella,
Yes.
Mr. Mummer.
Yes,
9 yes, 0 no.
thank you. Thank you, Mandy. And now we'll go to the other side of the room for program committee, Mandy Weaver.
Good evening. I'd like to make a motion to approve items 1 through 5 for the program committee.
We have a motion from Mandy Weaver for agenda item 9C, program committee 1 through 5, second from Vanessa Berger. Comments?
These items all address student needs that we as a district have the legal requirements to provide what our students need. If we cannot do that, we are then bound to go and find those services for these students, and that is what these address.
Okay, thank you. Any other comments or questions? Roll call, please.
Mrs. Weaver,
Yes.
Mrs. Yingst,
Yes.
Mr. Zimmerman,
Yes.
Mrs. Berger, Mrs. Boyer,
Yes.
Mr. Klausby,
Yes.
Mr. Gelazella,
Yes.
Mr. Plessick,
Yes.
Mr. Mummer,
Yes,
9 yes, 0 no.
thank you, Mandy. Yes, Tom?
I know we just took a vote and all that, but could someone try to explain to me why the 3, 4, and 5, it's starting from November the 14th, November the 1st, and then it goes to the end of the year, school year. Why are we retroacting? Why didn't we discuss this prior? Didn't we realize that we needed this at this point? I mean, I guess I'm just a little confused. We're now in February and we're
Dr.
Going
Hom is
back.
prepared to answer that.
Hi.
So these are placements that are decisions made, they're generally educational team decisions, so IEP team decisions, so we make the placements based on a team decision. So we're required to provide the support, and then generally in these cases, the school follow up with the contract to us that we present to you. So we're presenting it to you, that's our practice to agree, to have you agree to fund the support, but it's a necessary service that's required and determined by an IEP.
And were students using this service back in November?
Yes, so when we present, there's generally a lag. They get the students started for us right away when we need it, and then they generally send the contracts to us, we review them, and then present them to you.
Okay.
So it's generally a lag. Sorry about that. It's generally the lag in getting the contract, not a lag in service.
Okay, one more question. Are we billed for the whole contract at once? Or is it a monthly, just curiosity? That's strictly,
Every agency, every provider bills us a little differently, but most of them bill us, I would say probably on a monthly basis. As the bills come in, any student that's attending a program outside of the school district, as the bills come in, they're brought to me. I review them and then agree that that service has been provided, and then it is sent for the bills.
okay, thank you. Again, apologize for the questions after the vote.
That's okay. Thank you, Dr. Hom. Okay, moving on, agenda item 9D, building and grounds. Mr. Plessick.
Thank you, Mr. Mummer. I'd like to make a motion to approve agenda items 9D 1 through 4.
Second.
We have a motion from Rich Plessick for agenda item 9D, 1, 2, 3, and 4. Second from Cindy Boyer. Comments, questions? Any comments? Nate, Doug? No? Okay. Just to be transparent, these are a report of capital reserves for different accounts, capital finance and supports. Report of capital reserve of LRCP, report from Emory Markle Middle School, and a report of Southwestern High School capital projects. That's what these reports are all, motions are all about. Roll call, please.
Mrs. Yingst,
Yes.
Mr. Zimmerman,
Yes.
Mrs. Berger, Mrs. Boyer,
Yes.
Mr. Klausby,
Yes.
Mr. Gelazella,
Yes.
Mr. Plessick,
Yes.
Mrs. Weaver,
Yes.
Mr. Mummer.
Yes.
9 yes, 0 no.
Thank you, Rich. Agenda item 9E, Student and Community Relations Committee, Mrs. Boyer.
Thank you. I'd like to make a recommendation that we approve items 9E 1 through 7.
We have a motion from Cindy Boyer for agenda item 9E, items 1 through 7, and a second from Vanessa Berger. Comments?
1 through 3 are about using our facilities, and 4 through 7, we're discussing executive session for student-related issues.
Any other questions or comments? Yes, Mandy?
I was just curious, with item number 3, historically, have we waived their rental fees?
Yes, yes, we have. According to Mr. Osborne, we have.
Okay. Any other comments or questions? We have a roll call vote, please.
Mr. Zimmerman,
Yes.
Mrs. Berger, Mrs. Boyer,
Yes.
Mr. Klausby,
Yes.
Mr. Gelazella,
Yes.
Mr. Plessick,
Yes.
Mrs. Weaver,
Yes.
Mrs. Yingst,
Yes.
Mr. Mummer.
Yes.
9 yes, 0 no.
Next on our agenda is legislative VSBA report and related actions. Jeff's not here, and we don't have anybody else currently addressing that, so,
They're on recess, so,
well, that's true.
so the House hasn't been in for quite some time.
They haven't been in since the beginning of the year, I don't
Right.
think.
So there's not really much happening.
Does there ever? Oh, I'm sorry. Next item is reports and related action. First is our solicitor, Dr. Dalton.
Nothing to add.
Thank you. York County School of Technology, we have Rich and Matt, one or the other or both.
Nothing to add.
Okay, gentlemen, thank you. LIU number 12. Okay. Recreation Commission.
We have our next meeting next Monday. So that'll be to gear up for what will be the summer season this year.
Okay, thank you. Title 1 and 2.
No report.
Superintendent's report, Dr. Burkhart.
Just real brief, I'm going to not share some of the things that the high school, middle school are going to share, I'm sure, because if I share it, then I usually get the hairy eyeballs, my dad would say. So, but I do want to welcome our high school students who are here tonight observing the meeting, and hopefully, obviously you're all interested in a career in education, and that's heartening to me, and I know many around us. We always need excellent teachers to continue tradition here, so welcome. Hopefully you're enjoying it. You don't look very enthused, but you'll get credit for being here. And then on another note, we have Dr. Bonds here tonight. She's doing her administrative internship, and we always need quality administrators, so it's great to see her here this evening, and hopefully you're learning a lot and enjoying it. And that would conclude my very brief report.
Thank you, Dr. Burkhart.
Mr. Mulber?
Yeah.
May I ask Dr. John Bonds, if I can ask you how it is going thus far, if you can just talk a little bit about it, your experience thus far?
Yep,
If you don't
well,
mind.
yeah, come to the microphone and could, what, I'm not working or not.
I don't mean to put you on the spot.
Should be on, right?
You won't hear it. Okay, good.
Thanks for asking. It's been a lot. I think part of my experience so far that I've enjoyed the most is I've been teaching here for 15 years, and I've seen it strictly through the lens of a teacher. So in the fall, my internship was at the high school, and it was part of day-to-day teaching. And I was able to see snippets of it, and I feel like I have a new appreciation for what our administrators do that I didn't have before. And it's a thankless job that I don't think we get enough appreciation for. And part of it has scared me a little bit. But it's been eye-opening, and I sometimes, I wish more teachers, I think, would see what's happening behind the scenes. I think we sometimes think, oh, they're in another meeting. They're in another meeting. We don't ever see them, but they are working, and there's a lot that they're up against right now in world of education. And I feel I have a new appreciation for what they're doing. It is hard the way that the internship is set up currently because I'm teaching full time. So I feel like I'm seeing little pictures of everything, and I'm trying to piece together it. Right now at the elementary school, and that's also new to me, but I'm enjoying it. So it's good so far. And I think at the end, I get to meet Dr. Burkhart, put together a full report, and maybe present a whole picture with everything. But yeah, so far it's been good.
Is there a better way that we can get the word out to everyone else that this is an option for them in terms of career enhancement?
I think inspiring younger teachers and teachers who already innately want to take those leadership roles. And Dr. Hartman, we have like a teacher-led leadership academy. And I think maybe targeting some of them to maybe, sometimes you just need to be pushed by mentors or people already in positions. I think that's probably one place to start.
Okay, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
That's fine. Thank you. Thank you. Next on our agenda is other reports. Assistant Superintendent, Dr. Hartman.
All right, good evening. Thank you, Dr. Bonds, for those words. We'll give you your kickback for those comments later. But no, I just wanted to provide a couple staffing updates since you saw some of the positions and some of the leaves for next year. We'll say we probably, and when I say we, our administrative team, really were on the ball this year with gearing up for the hiring season. I know I mentioned this about a month ago, but we have a little more details now. Even though it's only February, we're already interviewing for some of our retirements positions that we know about for next year due to retirements. We have some leaves due to sabbaticals, maternity leaves, and so on. And we're already starting to make some decisions, and we'll probably have some recommendations coming to the board very soon. So my goal this year was to get on it early because of all of the reasons we've talked about with getting more difficult to find people. So our administrators have responded to that, and really we're about a month ahead of where we normally are. And we're also in a fortunate position. We are a little bit light, knock on wood, on the retirements this year. We have 5 professional staff that we know about. That's a little bit less than what we typically have. So we hope it stays that way. But then here, beginning in March and April, myself and some of our administrators will be hitting the road, doing the college tour, doing different, going to different recruiting fairs and on-campus events. I think in March and April, I'm at Millersville, York College, East Stroudsburg, Bloomsburg, Penn State, and probably a couple others that I'm not thinking of right now. So we'll get busy. So Millersville is a central PA. There's about 12 colleges that Shippensburg's one. So we're getting busy, and hopefully that results in the results of that are some recommendations coming your way soon. So thanks. And I'll piggyback on what Dr. Burkhart said. It's great to see Mrs. Stremmel and her lab students here this evening. I know they do a great job. So speaking of future educators, so good to see all of you.
Thank you, Dan. Business administrator, fill in anything?
No report.
Dr. Holland, Director of Special Education,
Mr. Mummer,
Yes.
before Dr. Hom comes up, the microphone did not work for Dr. Hom or for Ms. Bonds. So would you like to just use, I'm sorry, Dr. Bonds, I apologize. Do you want her to just use the little one? Okay. Yeah. It's not working on the live stream. Just hold one of ours, yeah.
Good evening again. Great. In addition to my written report, I just wanted to highlight that we have been working as a school district for several years now on mental health universal screening. Earlier this year, we completed a pilot at our middle school, and since then, we have completed a pilot at the high school as well. The pilot went very well. We stuck with a very small group of students, again, for this pilot, and decided to try just a different model or a different sort of strategy to the screening that was a recommendation that our team decided or suggested during the first pilot. So we did complete the second pilot. We thought it went very well. We had a great day. I think the middle school and the high school should be commended on the approach everyone took. It was really a district-wide effort. We had representatives across the district participating in both events. Everyone approached this as sort of a learning opportunity and something that's a little different, and was really open-minded because we weren't sure how it would go. But there was a very high degree of teamwork. In collaboration, we had a really positive response from our students who participated in their understanding of why we were doing it and how it served them. So our future steps as we move through this school year will be to get together as a district-wide team and talk about what does this continue to look like. So we are in our first year of our grant. It is a 2-year grant, so we have another year to kind of keep working through our process. While we have the support of our grant team. It feels a little weird to say that because we've been working on this for 3 years now, 2 years of prep. So this is our first grant year, so we have some more work to do this year to talk about how we want this to look as a school district moving forward. So at some point in the future, we'll certainly be sharing with you our ideas for how this can continue to grow.
Okay. Yes, Todd.
Getting caught up. How much was the grant for?
The grant covers the cost of the screening tool. So there is an online behavioral health tool that we use, and the grant covers the entire cost of our access to that tool for the 2 years.
Okay. And how were the students chosen to do the screening?
So it was random. So at the middle school, we selected one team out of one grade level. At the high school, we selected sort of randomly selected students from a grade level. So random completely, aside from the grade level. We
Thank
have
you.
model districts that used sort of the grade level model. So that's where we use that idea. We're working with other districts that are doing universal screening to kind of use their ideas to build on this as well.
Okay, thank you.
Yes.
Robin, so in the initial pilot of screening, my concern, I love that we're trying to identify kids who may need help that are going to identify during the screening. My concern is always how we respond to that. Did you have any kids that were identified in the screening that needed help, and did they get the help? Or is there a challenge there to get them the help they need still?
No, so yes, we had students who were identified as having needs, and yes, we were able to access assistance for them. So during both screening events, the way the screening process works, that we immediately review the responses that students provide, and then we prioritize the level of response that we're giving to students based on their level of need, and we're pairing them with specific team members from the district. So we have district team members that have a high level of mental health experience. So we partner students with a higher level of need with those staff members. Students that are showing a low level response or low level need, we decided as a district that we were going to partner with our guidance counselors. That gave our guidance counselors an opportunity to have meetings anyway with all of those students, and have an opportunity to touch base with students just as a sort of another way to make sure the students knew who they were and were able to have some conversations with them about why we were doing it, making sure students knew that if they did develop a level of need down the road, that they had people they could talk to, and they knew how to access resources. So we took advantage of the bulk of students who just needed that touch base of what we were doing and why. We use that as an opportunity to connect with their guidance counselors.
But the ones that are high need, are we forwarding them to our psychiatrists, psychologists that we have on staff?
So the ones that were higher level need, they met with somebody immediately that day. So a member of our staff who was either a school psychologist or one of our behavioral health providers met with students immediately. When we reviewed their results, the students, our staff members processed with the students, talked through what their results were and made recommendations. They made immediate contacts with parents or social services in some cases if it was necessary. So our staff member processed with the student, referred to services, connected students where there was a need, and also connected with parents immediately about any recommendations we were making.
Thank you, Dr.
Any other questions? Okay, thank you.
Okay, just pass that on to Dr. Friel. He's next.
Thank you, Dr. Hom. Good evening, everyone. Just in addition to my report, I just wanted to highlight, last time when I was here, I did mention I wanted to share with you some of the teachers who had been stepping up to be on the various leadership teams. Hopefully you got the chance to see that. The group that I neglected to put in there, who is also with me all the time and loving curriculum as much as I do, perhaps, are our administrators. So I just wanted to highlight them, my principal colleagues. They do a lot as well. So thank you. Have a good night. Unless you have any questions for me about my report. Yes. Ms.
Actually, I
Speaker.
have two. The first question, I know that you've been doing work with, because you've told us, looking at curriculum for English language curriculum for the elementary school.
Right.
And some of these we received in our weekly update that one of them had a catchy little name. But my question is, I have a fear when we look at these resources that, I don't know how to say this, so I'll walk it back if I have to. But when someone decides to be an elementary school teacher versus a high school art teacher or a high school history teacher or whatever, it's because there's a passion for what they want to teach. So when you walk and look at these programs, are these programs solely to be resources to then bolster the teacher in the way that they choose to teach? Or are these more like cookie cutter, like almost you imagine Microsoft Word, right? Here's Microsoft Word, use it. It's pre-done. You don't have to do anything. You could teach anybody to do it.
Sure.
Or is this more like, hey, here's just a guide and we'd really like you, here's your goalpost, get here how you get here, but these are here to help, I guess is my question. I don't
How
want to
long-
take the teaching out of teaching.
How long did you want to stay tonight for me to explain
You
all that's
know,
wrapped into that question?
we can have coffee. It's fine.
Because that is the heart. The simplest answer is that every resource we bring forward is a resource. And what we do in the design process, the thing that we'll do in June again, whenever I share with you all of our curriculum guides, that is what we are teaching. It's those goals, the assessments, the resources used to help us get to those goals. So when we look at a resource like that, we don't just take the resource and just teach it verbatim. We use it to go along with the things that you will approve, which are in those guides. I hope I answered the question.
Yeah, no, that makes sense.
Okay.
The second question, and this one's a little bit touchier, but
Okay.
we all know that when 2020 hit and everything happened, there was a large dip in education. This is not a blame on anybody. It's just an honest statement. That's been seen in PSSA scores. That's been seen in dropped Keystone scores all over the country, all over the state. So now the waters come back up and it's leveled off. I don't know if we're going to be here again. I don't know if we're going to be down here again, but this is where we are. So when we are looking at our students that are in high school and middle school and elementary school, and we make these assessments, are they based off of the fact that we know I hate to say we're coming from behind because that's not fair.
Sure.
But if you lost a year of grammar, are you sitting in a high school classroom not knowing the difference between there, and there?
Sure.
You know, and if is there a way to assess that? Because those aren't going to be the things that we would see on PSSAs and keystones and things like that. Those are more almost commonsensical English and mathematical things. And generally they're assumed when you take those types of things.
Right. Okay, so the best way I can answer the question is that we have no control over the state assessments. And
Right.
so we will always have to administer those state assessments. State assessments are aligned to the state standards. We have a responsibility in the curriculum to write to the state standards.
Okay.
So therefore, our assessments match those standards because we have that responsibility.
Okay.
We know full well, though, that as we continue to close that gap of where kids are, we will continue to see dips for who knows how long. It could be for a long time. But the art of teaching and the beauty of what we do in the classroom is the teachers are looking to always close that gap on individual things they're doing all the time. We may not see the results in the state
Right.
assessments, but when we think about the assessments we adopt within our curriculum process, they're always based on the goals, but we have ways of trying to help kids bridge the gap to get there, even if it takes longer than what we might have traditionally thought. And that's really, honestly, one of the most challenging things that we are experiencing in education right now. It's because of the gaps that we see, and we're really trying hard to close those. It will come, it'll just take time.
I'd also like to say that I don't agree with state assessments
Sure.
on grading children. So it's not a statement that I don't think you guys are doing your jobs. You are doing your jobs. But my fear is if we are tied to these tests,
Sure.
then do some of our students walk out just missing things because there wasn't any way to get it all back in?
It's a great question. Gosh, we really do need more time to talk about it. I guess if you could just take what we're trying to do is we are definitely trying to intervene and close those gaps because we know we have the responsibility to show that the state level, because of the state tests, how we're doing. Our curriculum is aligned to that, but we are definitely working to try to intervene as best as we can with our kids and to make them feel good in the process, which who can feel really good about taking a state test anyhow? It's a very difficult thing.
Yes.
So Dr. Frill?
Yes.
Along those lines, I had a conversation with a parent 2 nights ago whose child was scoring mid-90s in all their grades, but had failed a Keystone. And her question was, why does my child have to pass a Keystone if our grades are reflective of the skills? And can you speak to that? The requirement as well from the state, what is that based on?
Goodness. Yes. How can I speak to that? I mean, so there are many things about grading and assessment that are very difficult to answer in this forum, right? We have state assessments, and those state assessments are aligned, but we also have sometimes kids coming in not really motivated to do well on a state assessment, even if they are 100% skilled in being able to do it. It's one of the most frustrating things that I think in education we have. And there's nothing we can really do about that. That just sometimes happens when you rely on one test on one day as the measure. The best thing we can do is to look at the overtime measures that we have within our curriculum process. That's probably why you sometimes see disparity. But when we see that disparity, it is our job to say, wait a second, you are doing this work for me in the classroom, and yet you're not doing well on this test. Why is that? Where is the gap? And we try to figure that gap out. And it's really that is the challenge. It's trying to help kids think, yeah, this is good and motivating. I want to do well on this and also do well in the school. And getting those worlds to line up it's hard, but that is what we try to do.
Isn't there a secondary option as well if they do fail a Keystone to be able to?
There are other pathways,
Other
correct?
paths, I'm
Yep.
sorry.
That's true. There are
So-
different pathways that they can take in order to fulfill that graduation requirement.
So
That's a
potentially if
new
you have a
law.
child that just does not test well,
Correct.
and even with accommodations can't get there,
Yes,
then there are other pathways.
that is
as well.
correct. That is correct.
I'm going to prompt Ms. Dalton to relay the information she just did me regarding your question.
All it is that there are 5 pathways, and then there's a separate pathway for a student with a disability that you may qualify for, or you may fall into one of the other 5 pathways.
That is true.
That's Act 158, along with Act 1, along with a lot of acts that have been passed in the past couple of years. It's in a policy, and I'm trying to find it right now for you. And I'll
Yeah,
let
and
you
I
know.
was maybe misinterpreting your question. I
Yeah,
was
I
wondering
think-
if you were thinking about the grading and assessment practices that go along with that as well.
It was
So,
kind of twofold.
Okay.
If we're trying to structure to pass the test as well, get the skills and they're passing in class, How are
Right.
they not getting, and you spoke to that, but again, can they test multiple times, right?
On the
They-
Keystone?
Yes.
Yes, they
right,
can redo those.
Right.
Or they can go the
Just the
alternate
question is,
path.
are they motivated to pass the state test if they don't feel like, some
Yeah.
might feel like they
Mhm.
don't need to.
Correct. That's one of many factors.
Right.
I was going to come up and say no report tonight. I'm glad I did not
Sorry.
actually come up to say no report tonight. This is actually
I'm
helpful.
so sorry.
Anything else
Take a
before I
night.
take a seat?
No.
Thank you very much.
Pass that off to Dr. Cromer, if you will.
I will.
So since he was going to do no report, maybe I should say that as well. Actually, just to sort of piggyback and had a lot of great questions. I want to thank the board for supporting our in-service days, and we didn't get a chance to necessarily talk about those, our early dismissal days and our Act 80 day on Monday. So a lot of these things that you're asking about and talking and what we share, those are opportunities for us to meet during the school year, and they're very valuable. So thank you all for supporting us and allowing those to be in the calendar because they are meaningful times. For the elementary, we did a lot in conjunction with Dr. Friel on my days straight. Friday, we did a number of things, and then on Monday, in collaboration with our grade level leaders, our administration, did a number of things with Canvas, EduPlanet, the curriculum, looking at resources. So we had a lot of people moving all over the place, so it's greatly appreciated. And also not giving Dr. Burkhart the hairy eyeball, but I was going to say something about Mrs. Stremmel and her kids coming, so you beat me to it. Thank you. This is, and I've mentioned about Mrs. Stremmel and the kids before at the elementary level. We enjoy having them coming, building that pipeline. Just wonderful for them to come and experience. And Dr. Bonds, she got a chance to come up and talk. She didn't mention her, she had said she had how many years? 15, yeah, I thought so. That's what it was. First day she came down really to elementary. I said, why don't you just go explore? Like just walk around. And she did. And about a half a day I came back and her eyes were like, oh my goodness. I said, yes, quite different than the middle school and secondary level. And I said, just go to the cafeteria, pop in the classroom. So thank you for the opportunity that we have for Dr. Bonds and anyone else that comes through. It is nice sort of thinking about that pipeline of our education and administrators. So definitely well deserved. So that concludes my report, unless you have questions for me. Hopefully not. All right, perfect.
Pass that on to
Passing
Dr.
off.
Mayo.
I like this, we can walk and hand off.
Good evening, everyone. So February tends to be a down month at the middle school on the surface because, you know, our sports season wrapped up, but at the middle school level, we don't have any postseason tournaments typically and things like that. However, there's a lot of things that have gone on in the month of February. I just wanted to highlight a couple of those things. On the 3rd of February, we had our York County Choral Festival. And just to give you an idea of how this works, 90 students from 9 different districts came to our building that morning. And there was a choral director from Temple University who was our guest, sort of our guest of honor. Tasha Bob did a lot of behind the scenes work to plan for that. On that day, they learned music and songs that they were not expecting to learn. They're all new. And that evening, they present them to the people who come to the concert. So it's the top of the top, and it's a great concert to see. And it was really nice to host that.
Can I make a quick comment? And I don't normally,
Yes,
but my daughter
absolutely.
was performing from one of the other school districts, and it was great to be in the middle school auditorium not for a board meeting, and it was. But I agree, my daughter still talks about the guest speaker from Temple University. It was a really impactful day, so I appreciate and thank you for hosting this that event. It was really nice.
Absolutely. And then on the 10th, we held our winter dance. And those of you who have been part of district for a long time probably have heard of our PIP dance. And that's been in place for the latter part of 2 to 3 decades. And this year, with some of our changes in Strive, we've changed the format of that dance that you no longer had to sort of qualify to come to that dance because we have monthly events that our kids are qualifying for. So we made a pretty fundamental, pretty significant change there. We did have 450 of our 7th and 8th grade students who came to the dance. They had opportunities to dance, of course, and we had our gymnasium open. Of course, most of our boys are down there shooting basketball and playing volleyball and running around chasing each other. But no, seriously, they spent a lot of time at the dance as well. So that was a great night for all of our kids. And then we also, during this month, had our TSA regional event. So we had 30 students from the middle school who participated, and 24 of the 30 students placed in the top 10. We had 10 students or teams that finished in first place, 13 that took second place, and 7 that took third place. And I don't have the number, but a large majority of them will be going off to our state competition, which will be in Seven Springs here in April. And again, Jana is a big part of spearheading that. So congratulations to her and her team on that. So it's been a great month for the middle school. We're about 2/3 done. It's been a great year. It's hard to believe that about a little less than 3 weeks from now, we'll be moving into the 4th marking period. So that's, we're just moving forward in the year, and it's been a great year. So any questions for the middle school? All right, thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Smale. Mr. Downs.
Good evening. Oh, it's loud. I grew up watching The Price is Right, and I was always envious of Bob Barker's thin microphone, so I finally get to hold a thin microphone, so I'm excited about that. I too want to thank Ms. Schremmel and our students for being here this evening. It's great to see people want to pursue this career, and hopefully, all of you do become teachers someday, maybe elementary teachers or high school teachers. So I wish you the best in that endeavor. Also with Dr. Bonds, she did a phenomenal job in the fall with us at the high school. And truthfully, if she decides when this is all done, if she wants to be an administrator, I think we'll be in great hands. Outstanding job in the fall. So looking forward to hearing what she thinks of elementary here. Two things. Tomorrow night, we have our parent-teacher conferences from 6 to 8 p.m. in the high school, and the signups went out I think 2 weeks ago. So we've had a lot of parents sign up. So we're looking forward to seeing all the parents tomorrow evening. And the second thing is we do have our JA STEM Summit occurring today and tomorrow. So our STEM Summit, okay, science, technology, engineering, and mathematics was occurring all day today. So we want to thank those volunteers that came in for our students and Mr. Winters, because he really worked hard to plan this entire event this year. And very happy to say that at the end of the day, as we were talking to the volunteers when they were leaving, they said, we've been to a lot of high schools in York County, and Southwestern has some of the best kids we've seen. So we're very proud of that. So tomorrow that continues, and that's for our 10th graders. So we're really looking forward to that. Thank you.
Mr. Downs?
Yes.
See, I didn't mention it, but I thought you guys were going to yell at me. March 1st, can we talk about that? Vaping.
Oh, yes. Yeah, I'm sorry. I thought Dr. Smale might have said that. Yeah, you're correct. Next Wednesday night from 6:30, starts at 6:30 in the middle school auditorium over here. There is, I think it's the York County Drug Enforcement Task Force. They're coming in. They're going to have a panel, and that panel is going to share with parents. It's called Drugs 101. So it's kind of the, prevention techniques for parents and so on to help their children, hopefully prevent and not get into drug use and vaping and so on. So yes, that's next Wednesday evening at 6:30. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Downs.
Mr. Mummert?
Oh, yeah, I'm sorry.
If you would please, in your report, it was written up that the librarian was able to get a grant for esport, or is it esports or
Correct.
gaming?
Yep,
Or maybe
esports.
both. So while I am not well versed in the world of grant writing, I know that it is quite an undertaking to apply for educational grants. I know Mandy Yanks knows a lot more about this than I do, but it seems like this, our librarian has gone above and beyond for our students. She's working with 2 other teachers in the building.
Correct.
And they're going to create a program that she's helping to spearhead at the library to help draw more high schoolers into an extracurricular activity, which was one of the goals that was set for the high school this year. So reading that, it was really awesome to see how much work that she has put in for the students, because she supports the entire building. It's not one grade level. So I just wanted to publicly thank her. I think it's wonderful, and I cannot wait to see what she does with it.
Yeah, yes, and Joe Massaro and Kayla Johnson are the 2
Yes.
advisors. And they actually sent a survey out to our students to gauge the interest, and they had over 100, I think it was 140 students said they're interested in joining esports. So it's very exciting. You know, it's all about letting kids find their niche, you know, so we're really excited to see where this program goes. Yes.
So I just wanted to provide an opportunity for our future teachers to get the mic and let us know what's working or what's not towards encouraging you guys to pursue teaching. Anyone want to take a mic and make a comment to the board? Because I'm interested to hear what you ladies have to say about it.
You get to hold this cool mic.
No?
You could.
Oh, really? No? All right. I don't want to put anyone on the spot. I just wanted to give you ladies the opportunity if you wanted to mention, you know.
I'll give you an opportunity to think about it. We still have Mr. Wareheim, and then we go to comments before we get to other and visitors. So I'll give you some time to think about it. In the meantime, Dr. Wareheim, or yeah, Mr. Wareheim? Dr. Wareheim. Not yet.
Doctor on TV. Good evening, board members. I have nothing to add to my normal report except to that spring sports does start on March 6th, so that's right around the corner. Does anyone have any questions about the normal report? Yes, ma'am. The basic athletic report.
No. I don't think this was on that, but my question was about soccer.
Yes.
Okay.
So in addition to my normal report, earlier last summer, Dr. Barkert and I had a conversation that we constantly get emails from the community, from students, from parents about why we don't have a junior high soccer program, and many of our surrounding schools have one. Every school system that touches us except the Lone has a junior high soccer program. So we sent out a survey back in the fall to grades 4 through 8 to gauge interest, and the survey was pretty overwhelming. So put our heads together and I came up with an idea, a 3-year implementation. I recommend that we move forward with the junior high program, of course, with your backing. If you guys have any questions about that, I can certainly try to help to answer tonight. I think a good goal to move forward and make a decision will be maybe by the May or June meeting of this year. So that time you have some time to think about it. Any questions, digest it, see how it all works together. Does anyone have any questions tonight about it?
I didn't have any questions. I'm just super excited about it. So I wanted to say thank you I read through everything that you sent. It's very thorough. It makes lots of sense. Obviously, there's a huge soccer program in Hanover as well as in Spring Grove. So the amount of students that are involved outside of school in a soccer program that might be able to then translate those talents to an in-school system. And the other thing is that I always think about the kids that maybe can't do the things on the weekends, that don't maybe have the families that have the means to get them to the things on the weekends. So when you have something through a school, I mean, I was this child. We didn't play sports until we could do it at school because that was just our family dynamic. So being able to offer that to students who haven't had the opportunity, but maybe definitely have the skill set, I think is invaluable, and getting them involved and active under the age of high school. All studies show that they have a more active lifestyle as they move forward in life. They maintain healthier weights. They make better choices. It's just like a snowballing effect. So, and the potential numbers, because it's a pretty large team or 2 teams. Well, this would be, I think it was 4, right?
It would be 2 boys teams, 2
Yes.
girls teams.
So JV and varsity, but not really. I mean, that's a significant amount of students that we could incorporate into this program. So I was very excited to see it, and I just wanted to say thank you for all your hard work.
Yeah, well, thank you very much. Of all the people who were highly or moderately interested, only 40% of those play soccer outside of outside of school. So that means we could be reaching a lot of kids that want to play soccer but aren't doing it at the club level. So.
And if I read it correctly, your largest reporters were 3rd grade, which if it takes 3 years to implement this system, they would be 6th graders or potentially rising 7th graders, depending on timeline, when they come in. So the group that showed the most interest, or at least the highest response, they're coming.
Yeah.
So I think it's been apparent for decades, that there's definitely an interest at that level. Several years ago, I want to say at least 10 years ago, we were approached by a local a large local corporation and a parent group who were very interested in us starting those teams. And the reason that was given as to why we didn't start those teams then was that there was a fear that you cannibalize your other sports if you're not careful. So you introduce teams into that season, it's going to pull kids away from other sports. Is that, I'll be honest, it didn't make a lot of sense to me then because we knew there was the interest, but can you kind of speak to that and how you see that?
Sure. In the spring for junior high, we offered track and volleyball. And if part of my report talks about our large numbers of junior high track, almost 100 kids. Supervision is a problem. Getting kids in events is a problem. So personally, as this athletic director, I think it will be good if some of those kids gravitated to soccer. It would make junior high track more manageable. And I think it would give those kids a better experience because sometimes they practice all season and they might not get in an event.
And perhaps 10 or more years ago, that was not the case. And that was maybe more of a struggling program. And now we're
Correct.
Yeah, okay.
And in the fall, our junior high football numbers are very large. So I think a few soccer kids would gravitate maybe to junior high soccer,
Are you looking-
even though it's in a different season.
I was gonna say, are you looking for this to be a fall sport or a spring sport?
No, it's has to be a spring sport in our league.
Okay, I was gonna say. But no, and yeah, I mean, to your point, an average wing in a soccer game runs 5 miles. So if you have distant smilers on that, track team, that's a great thing. It's a great outlet.
Right. So it is a 3-year proposal. We would continue with our clinic this spring, which we've done the last couple of years. Then next year will kind of be a school club or an intramural. Dr. Schmale said he might have some money for people to advise that. And then the 3rd year will be part of the budget. And the numbers that I approximated are in that report. And thank goodness Mr. Mummert's not here tonight to see this.
Yeah, Tom, could you please make sure that that email gets forwarded to me?
Oh, yes, sir.
All right, please?
Yeah, yes.
Thank you. Okay.
I just wanted to thank you for doing the initial legwork so we can identify the interest in this, because that is important. When every time we start budgeting money towards a team, I'm all for this as well. I think it gets kids away from virtual land since COVID. It's another great option we could provide. So I thank you for starting this and getting this off the ground with Dr. Burkhart.
Yeah, my pleasure.
Can I jump on your report for just a second?
Yes,
Just to
sir.
Add 1 or 2 things. The student reps may have already mentioned this to some degree, but after our board retreat at the end of January, I took the effort to go over to the swim meet. And it's the first opportunity I've had to see the upgrades on the swim meet. And I want to compliment you and everyone else that was involved in the running of that meet. The place was packed to the rafters. The crowd was boisterous beyond belief. You couldn't hear yourself think, but the way everything was run. But one thing that I wanted to bring to the board's attention was I had the opportunity to have a conversation with Mr. Sterner, who has been with us forever and will probably never leave us, thank goodness. And he made a point of saying, were you involved in this new facility? And I said, well, I was at the beginning, but not the end of it. And he said, would you please thank the board? It is a fabulous upgrade and it is extremely fast. And I also just wanted to mention that at that meet, the girls placed first for the 2nd year in a row. But more importantly, well, not more importantly, but equally, the boys in the 9th and 10th grade relay set both a team and a meet record. And that meet record stood since 1994, I believe it was, 94 or 96. And if you don't mind, I'd like to mention the students that were involved in that success. For the girls' breaststroke, they set a team record. That was Leah Leonard, Sarah Ballou, Elise Leonard, and Chloe Albrecht. The boys' 200 freestyle, 9th and 10th grade relay set the team and meet record, and see if you recognize one of the names. Spencer Weinholt, Sean Filipovitz, Dagum Cross, and Owen Cromer. So congratulations to those kids and for everything that you did to put on another successful meet and to show how well Southwest run something.
Well, thank you very much. The coaches are it's all about them. They do all the legwork and behind the scenes work. So, but thank you. I'll certainly pass that on.
Thank you.
And thank you, Troy. Is there someone in here to speak for the Southwestern Association? Okay.
So President Kate Wilson wanted to apologize that she couldn't make it. She's down with the stomach bug tonight. But I'm Lacey Anderson, member at large of SWEA, social studies teacher at the high school. Kate asked me to report that we have started negotiating our next teacher contract, and we look forward to continuing the process in a positive direction.
Thank you.
Mr. Mummer?
Yes, I'm Seth.
Oh, no, you're fine. I just had a very quick question as Mr. Wareheim was up here and we were discussing, the excitement surrounding the middle school sports. I've had a few individuals reach out to me regarding the elementary grades and those sports and how, I know we've had discussions before, but maybe we revisit it, how we get more participation in those. There is a policy on not having the flyers sent home. And I know we had once spoken about maybe doing it at a certain time in the year and or putting them up on the community resource page of the website. I just kind of wanted, if we're seeing those numbers fall, how that's going to then feed into the middle school programs. I mean, they may not be school sanctioned necessarily, but they are our feeder programs at all the elementary schools. And I just wanted to maybe broach that topic again. And it doesn't have to be for this evening, but I just thought I'd piggyback off of Mr. Wareheim's report.
Okay, I can't address any of that. I don't know if there's the principals from the middle school, or I'm sorry, the elementary schools that have any insight into sports programs at the elementary level, Dr. Burkhardt?
Yeah, we
maybe?
receive requests all the time from outside agencies and, Mrs. Jinks, you raise a good point. We do receive those requests, but it becomes a very slippery slope if we start to send information home for school, any organization that is not school affiliated. Other requests have been made to put signs on our campus. I understand that they are feeder and I'm in full support of any kind of extracurricular activity. My caution to the board, and with all due respect to these organizations, is if you do it for one, you're gonna have to do it for them all. And that means signs everywhere on the campus. That means sending home brochures for organizations that are even outside our boundaries. I'm not sure if there's a way to limit that, Dr. Dalton, but I can tell you that we've posted it. They've put it in their newsletters. We will make flyers available on our table, but I would hesitate to start to distribute it to our classrooms, taking time from instruction to do that. That's something that, while I understand the value of it, and I'm not discounting the importance of athletics or any other extracurricular activity, because it's not just athletics, it's a concern of mine that we would be putting an undue burden on our staff and taking instructional time away to distribute that information.
Right, so it's a little bit of what they call it, whatever the forum that we create. So if we are allowing one organization to come in and promote whatever sports, then any organization could come in and promote any after-school program, during school program, however, whatever they might want to promote. But there are ways to limit it, and it's the manner that time, place, and manner. That's the phrase in the legal sense. And so one of those is the manner, right? So maybe there are some districts that have all that information, all the posters, all the everything on the web, right? And there's a little bit of an equity and access concern. So maybe there's a bulletin board in the office that just there are places where you can just say, no, we're not passing it out in the classroom, but we're going to make it available here on this virtual billboard or bulletin board and here in the physical bulletin board. But again, if the religious or the anti-religious program wants to have their promotion just as much as the sports organization or the chess club, like they all have to be allowed.
And we have the community page, and then we also have the tables available. And I know our principals have worked with some of the organizations to try to promote it. Again, not against it, and certainly won't understand the value of it. But my concern is that it becomes an issue that now our administrators in the office are dealing with this request. I think that using the community forum that we have and the tables, my opinion, and it may be an unpopular opinion, is that's where we limit it to. And it's been something we've been doing for a while, and I would be very, very reluctant to ever make a recommendation that we'd start passing that information out during the day.
No, I certainly understand and respect and appreciate that. I also would not at all want to burden the teachers with this. I was thinking more along the lines of, and of course, Mrs. Weaver can speak more to it. You know, when PTOs send home a flyer or something, perhaps these organizations can coordinate with their PTOs to send that home at that same time when the teachers are already gathering the materials from their mailbox. But again, I don't know exactly how it works, and Mrs. Weaver can.
I mean, I can speak to the organization that I am responsible for. I mean, we actually just had a conversation at our last meeting where we asked our teacher representative, because you are entrusted with sending things home for our PTO, what would be the best way for this? We don't want to burden you. Do you want everything stapled together, one packet instead of one every week or two every week? What's the easiest way? And they were very honest with us, which we appreciate because it is certainly not our goal to make their lives harder. We PTOs and PTAs are also not employees of the district, nor are we in any way, shape, or form employed by or work under the guises of the district. We work to better the parent-teacher-student bond. So for us, we will allow outside organizations to send flyers to us, which we post on our social media page, which is controlled by our PTO and in no way affiliated with the school district, but we never send anything home, nor have we ever included anything on any of our newsletters or anything like that. That being said, I was thinking, which is scary, while we were sitting here, when we do PTO functions in the evenings, right? We are bound by the same rules as everything else, but we will bring in outside people. We had a face painter come to our Winterfest. She's not a district employee. She had business cards on her table because she has a face painting business. If we were to try and think creatively, would it be possible to allow these organizations potentially, and this, I'm just literally putting this out there, at our back to school nights in the fall, where school is not in session, parents have options to come or not come. Could they have something there? At kindergarten registration, we allow Guthrie Memorial Library to set up a table. They're not employed by the school district. So it's a wonderful program, and I'm not saying we shouldn't do that. But if we're gonna stick to it, I mean, they run a summer program for book reading, which is wonderful, but you know, I'll use our school, if the Mannheim Vikings were able to distribute their information, or even if they weren't there, but that information was on a table, you don't want them in the building, that's fine. You're gonna have spring lacrosse, you're gonna have winter football, or fall football, sorry. You're gonna have, you know, just a table available information, because frankly, the tables in the schools, because we do this ourselves, they are within the locked guises of the building. So those community information tables here at the middle school, it's between the doors and your access point. So you do not have to card in to get, or license in to get that information. At our elementary school, that's not the case. So you have to be granted access via license into the office, then granted access via a door into the hallway to be able to access a table that has the information for the PTO. So it's often that our wonderful receptionist is grabbing papers for parents and sending them home. So is there a better way to do it? Of course there is. And there's a worse way to do it, which is to say nothing ever. But what is that happy medium? Because I don't agree with letting every single solitary person that wants to advertise, because the world is a crazy place, being able to send paperwork in. But I just want our kids to have every option that they can. So I think it's worth a discussion. I just don't know where we would get with it, because I don't see a happy medium here that will make everybody happy, but we're never going to make everybody happy.
Okay. I think it's, as everything was being said, it's probably another item that we have further discussion on at another, I'd say, planning meeting. Okay. Is there any correspondence? Anyone, board members? Okay, other matters for board consideration or action? Mr. Clausby, if you will.
Thank you, Mr. Mummert. I make a motion that the board
Excuse me.
approve.
I'm sorry.
Sorry. May I ask that you do A separate, because that's a final adoption, and I was not privileged to the changes. And but I'm okay with the tentative, because then I have time to review them before their final adoption. Please, if you would.
I make a motion I ask the board to make a motion to approve agenda items 14B, C, and D, which are tentative adoptions of different policies.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion from Mr. Klausby for agenda item 14, B, C, and D, and a second from Tom Zimmerman. Any further comment or questions regarding those motions?
Lee, I just had a question, or Dr. Dalton, I'm sorry. I just had a question in regards to the eligibility of non-resident students. And I'm probably reading it wrong, but obviously a student that is a non-resident, they're required to pay to attend the school district. There's,
Not necessarily.
okay, then that's why that line was
Foster care,
confusing.
homeless,
Okay.
etc.
The line that confused me was that the district could kick them out. And I was like, how's that work? So that makes more sense.
Right.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
Sure.
Any other comments or questions on those three items? Roll call vote, please.
Mrs. Berger? Mrs. Boyer?
Yes.
Mr. Klausby?
Yes.
Mr. Gelazella?
Yes.
Mr. Plessick?
Yes.
Mrs. Weaver?
Yes.
Mrs. Yingst?
Yes.
Mr. Zimmerman?
Yes.
Mr. Moment?
Yes.
9 yes, 0 no.
Now I make a motion that the board approve agenda item 14A, which is the final adoption of policy 707.
We have a motion from Mr. Klausby, a second from Mrs. Berger for agenda item 14A. Further comments, questions? Roll call, please.
Mrs. Boyer?
Yes.
Mr. Klausby?
Yes.
Mr. Gelazella?
Yes.
Mr. Plessick?
Yes.
Mrs. Weaver?
Yes.
Mrs. Yingst?
Yes.
Mr. Zimmerman?
Abstain.
Mrs. Berger? Mr. Moment?
Yes.
8 yes, 0 no, 1 abstention.
Thank you, Jay. Now, visitors, future teachers. Any comments from the students? Or Dee, do you have any comments?
It is 8:45 on a school night. You leave these children alone.
Got one, I think.
Got one?
No, no. Oh, no.
She looks like
Come on up.
What am I speaking on?
What is she speaking
Your
on?
experience?
I guess I'll say that I'm very grateful that we have this program, because I'm one of those people that I'm very up in the air of what I want to become when I'm older. And this internship definitely helped me to figure out whether or not I want to be a teacher, what grade I would like to teach, what area I want to teach. Still not there yet, but we're getting there. But yeah, I'm very grateful to have that. Not all schools have that, so we're definitely benefiting.
Can I ask you what's encouraging you?
Oh, what, to become a teacher? I guess because not gonna, but I see a lot of some teachers nowadays just kind of push and push and push, and I see it, especially in myself, that there's a lot of struggle, and I feel like some children don't get as much attention as they need to, and when I have my own classroom, I want to be able to really focus with the children that need help, because I feel like sometimes they're just kind of pushed to the back of the class, and I don't appreciate that as one student that has struggled for some time. So I just want everyone to be helped,
Great answer.
I guess. So, any other
Thank you.
questions?
Any other questions?
No, but I do have a comment. We have had the pleasure of having two of our children attend the preschool program that Mrs. Stremmel runs. And I've also gotten to see some of these students work in the elementary school buildings, and real life experience is often underrated. You know, everybody wants to see a diploma. Everyone wants to see a piece of paper. Some people think the school that's listed on that paper matters more than the degree that was received. And I am a big fan of the School of Hard Knocks and Learning. And I think that this program, there is Nothing like giving a whole bunch of 16-year-olds a whole bunch of 3 and 4-year-olds and just watching what they can do with them. But my children remember the names of the teachers that taught them in their programs, and they are now in 4th and 2nd grade. They remember the names of the teachers they loved. They remember the names of the teachers they didn't. They remember Miss D if she walks into Mannheim. The impact is so embedded in these children. And I truly wish the program could be bigger. I'm sure Miss D does not. But it is amazing. And it was so awesome to see, even in the blueprints for the new high school, that there is a focus being put on, because people think practicum and they think shop, diesel. They think things like that. You'll go to cosmetology school, so you need to do those things. Having a practical approach to education before you sit in a college environment in a class with 500 other students taking introduction to education, knowing exactly what your goal is, your why, before you get there, will get you through those 4 years to that piece of paper. So I am eternally grateful for the program and for the woman that runs it and for these students. We still have the letters that our teachers wrote to our kids saying what they did well and what they didn't do well. And we remind our children all the time to strive to be better. So I'm appreciative of it, and thank you. Thank you for your honesty, and thank you for your answers. Of course.
What was your name?
Mackenzie.
Mackenzie, thank you for being bold enough to step up in front of the class and talk to us all. That's one of the skills you're going to need.
Yeah.
Clearly, you have that already, so thank you.
Yeah. Thank you for listening.
Thank you. Anybody else?
I'd like to
Kid?
speak, but I don't speak.
You gotta go.
Any other students?
So my daughter also went through Miss Tremel's preschool program, and to this day, I think she still thinks the high school belongs to her.
I'm
A
gonna
couple
get-
things I want to bring up from the discussion. I'm pretty sure if you turn any of them on, people can hear me. All right,
Don't
so
bet on it.
a couple of things that came from the discussion tonight, as far as the board meeting, I think I was actually the victim of the problem with the videos being deleted off of YouTube. And the reason for that was prior to the last week's interview process, part of my preparation was to go in and watch the interviews from last year. They weren't anywhere to be found. So I was actually preparing by, like any person should do, even kids in high school, by watching prior interviews and finding out from the questions. I contacted Mr. Bull, and that's when I found out that our minutes were the replacement of those videos. I read our minutes. To me, they were insulting. And as a board, I mean, with today's technology, with our phones, I'm sorry, Mrs. Berger, but 20 years ago, technology has changed a lot. So to just delete those videos for no reason, or I know we're deleting them legally by state and federal guidelines, but I was out getting signatures for my petition to run on the current school board, and the majority of the people I spoke to asked the question, why would you delete the videos? Like, we're actually purposely doing work to delete the videos that have the comments of our current board, that our taxpayers and our community can see and witness the beliefs of our board members. The minutes do not reflect that appropriately. I was actually watching Mr. Bull during this meeting, and no offense, I know he's not a shorthand expert, but all of those conversations that were had tonight, if we delete the video from tonight's board meeting, those conversations will be completely lost, and no taxpayer will have the opportunity to go in and watch them. That's all I have to say. So consider that whenever you discuss that topic in a future meeting.
Thank you, Keith. Any other community members, administrators who didn't speak? Hearing and seeing nothing, is there a motion to adjourn?
Motion.
Mandy Weaver, a second from Cindy Boyer. Those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? No. Thanks, everyone, for your participation, your attendance, and we'll hope to see you again.